My husband, Jason, always said that success smells like imported truffles. We were standing in the aisle of the city's most expensive organic market, the kind where the lighting is designed to make the produce look like jewels. Jason checked his watch, the Patek Philippe I had bought him for his birthday, and gave me that practiced, charming smile. "Babe, I have to take this," he said, pointing to his phone. "It is the Tokyo investors? Big money?" He walked away toward the exit, looking important, his suit jacket draped perfectly over his shoulder. I stayed behind to pay for $50 worth of cheese. I was sliding my credit card into the reader when a hand touched my elbow. It was not gentle. It was firm. I turned around to see a security guard with gray stubble and eyes that looked like they had seen every lie ever told. His name tag read, "Frank, is that your husband?" he asked, tilting his head toward the sliding doors. I nodded. Frank did not smile. He leaned in close, his voice a low rumble that cut through the soft jazz playing overhead. "Come with me, dear," he said. "This is about your husband. You had better see it for yourself." Before we step into that security room and see what Frank saw, drop a comment and let me know where you're listening from right now. I want to know who is standing with me today. The security office smelled like stale coffee and floor wax, a sharp contrast to the lavender-scented air of the market. Frank did not waste time with pleasantries. He pointed to a monitor in the center of the bank. "Screen 4, he said. The image was grainy, but I could see the parking lot clearly. I saw our car, the black Tesla, and I saw Jason. He was not on the phone with Tokyo. He was leaning against the passenger side of a bright red convertible. A woman was in the driver's seat. She was young, maybe 23, wearing a tight fitness set that screamed social media influencer. I watched my husband reach into his jacket, the jacket I had dry cleaned for him yesterday, and pull out a thick white envelope. I knew exactly what was inside. $6,500 in cash. Our emergency fund. He handed it to her, and then he leaned in. He did not kiss her lips. He kissed her stomach. Frank turned a dial, and the audio crackled to life. He must have had a parabolic microphone or a high-gain feed from the lot. The sound was tinny, but the words were lethal. "Don't worry about her," Jason said, his voice dripping with that smooth confidence I used to love. "She is just the bank, babe. You are the prize." I felt a wave of nausea rise in my throat, hot and acidic. I wanted to scream. I wanted to smash the monitor. But then, a strange thing happened. The nausea stopped. It was replaced by a cold, hard sensation in my chest. It felt like steel hardening. I am a landscape architect. I build structures that withstand storms. I look at chaos and I create order. And in that moment, looking at the man I had married 5 years ago, I realized I was not looking at a husband. I was looking at a demolition project. People always ask, "How did you not know?" The truth is, I did know. We all know. This is the theory of micro-betrayals. We see the phone screen tilted away at the dinner table. We notice the passwords changing. We feel the sudden, sharp criticisms about our appearance or our work, but we ignore them. We suffer from optimism bias. We tell ourselves that the cost of acknowledging the truth is too high. The cost is blowing up our entire life. So we edit the blueprints. We pretend the cracks in the foundation are just aesthetic choices. Predators like Jason bank on that hope. They invest in our denial. But staring at that screen, my denial went bankrupt. "Can I have this?" I asked Frank. My voice did not shake. It was steady. Frank looked at me with a mixture of pity and respect. "I already saved it to this drive," he said, handing me a small black USB stick. "You be careful, ma'am. A man who lies that easily is dangerous." "I know," I said. I took the drive and slid it into my pocket. It felt heavy, like a weapon. "Thank you, Frank." I walked out of the security room and back through the automatic doors. The path to the parking lot felt miles longer than the walk in. I sat in the passenger seat and checked my reflection in the mirror. I looked the same, but the woman who had walked into the store to buy cheese was dead. The woman sitting in the car now was the architect, and I was about to condemn the building. 5 minutes later, Jason opened the door, breathless and smiling. "Sorry about that, babe," he said. "Tokyo is demanding, but I think I closed the deal." I looked at him. I looked at the mouth that had just kissed another woman's pregnancy bump. "That is amazing, honey," I said. I smiled. It was the best design work I had ever done. Let's go home. We lived in a penthouse that Architectural Digest once called a masterpiece of transparency. Floor-to-ceiling glass, open concept, nowhere to hide. But for the last 3 months, I had been living in a fog. I would lose my keys. I would forget client meetings. I would wake up feeling like the room was tilting on a frantic axis. Jason was so supportive. He would hold my hand and whisper, "It is okay, babe. We will get you help." But then I would hear him on the phone with our friends. His voice dropped to a tragic whisper. "It is getting worse," he would say. "The doctor thinks it is early onset psychosis. I might need to take over the firm just to keep us afloat." He wasn't just managing my illness, he was marketing it. That evening, after the parking lot revelation, Jason went to take a shower. I sat on the edge of the bed, listening to the water running. My head felt heavy, a familiar chemical weight pressing behind my eyes. I looked at the glass of water on the nightstand. He had brought it to me earlier, insisting I stay hydrated. I stood up. The bathroom tiles were cold under my feet as I walked in. Steam filled the air. I opened the medicine cabinet. There it was, the orange bottle with my name on it. Anti-anxiety. Take one daily. I poured a few pills into my palm. They were small, blue, unassuming. I had taken them obediently for weeks because I trusted him. But architects do not trust. We verify. I pulled out my phone. I typed the imprint code stamped on the pill into the search bar. Pill identifier. The search result loaded. I stopped breathing. The pills in my hand were not anti-anxiety medication. They were a powerful dissociative hallucinogen, usually prescribed for severe schizophrenia or in higher doses, used illegally to induce compliance and confusion. He wasn't caring for me, he was poisoning me. I looked at the bathroom mirror. My pupils were dilated. My skin was pale. The pieces fell into place with the terrifying precision of a collapsing bridge. The missing keys, the deleted emails, the confusion. It was all manufactured. He didn't just want to leave me for Kayla. He wanted to institutionalize me. If he could prove I was mentally incompetent, he could trigger the emergency clause in our prenup. He could get power of attorney. He could liquidate my firm, drain my accounts, and leave me locked in a facility while he spent my millions in the Maldives. My first instinct was to scream. I wanted to kick down the shower door and shove the pills down his throat. But rage is a luxury I could not afford. Rage would only prove his point. If I screamed, I was the crazy wife. If I fought back physically, I was the violent, unstable patient. I needed a different structural approach. I needed to become invisible while standing right in front of him. In psychology, there is a defense strategy known as the gray rock method. When dealing with a narcissist or a sociopath, you do not fight and you do not flee. You become a rock. You become uninteresting. You give them zero emotional fuel. You answer questions with yes or no. You do not defend yourself. You do not cry. You starve their ego of the drama it feeds on. I poured the pills back into the bottle, except for one, which I wrapped in a tissue and slid into my pocket. Evidence. The water stopped. The shower door opened. Jason stepped out, a towel wrapped around his waist, steam billowing around him like a stage effect. He looked at me, scanning my face for the confusion he had planted. "You okay, babe?" he asked, his voice thick with fake concern. "You look a little lost." I looked at him. I didn't smile. I didn't frown. I just blinked, slow and deliberate. "I am fine," I said. My voice was flat, monotone. He paused, waiting for me to complain about a headache or ask where my slippers were. He was waiting for the victim to recite her lines. "Just fine?" he asked, stepping closer. "Yes," I said. "I am going to read a book." I turned and walked out of the bathroom. I felt his eyes boring into my back, confused. He had winded up the toy, but it wasn't marching. I sat down in the living room and opened my laptop. I wasn't reading a book. I was opening a new spreadsheet. I titled it Audit. The fog was gone, the war had begun, and the first casualty was going to be his confidence. The following week was a masterclass in psychological demolition. Jason did not just want to prove I was incompetent. He wanted to make me believe it. He moved my car keys from the hook by the door to the inside of the refrigerator. He unsubscribed me from critical vendor alerts. He went into my laptop while I was sleeping and deleted 3 finalized concept decks for the City Park project, then emptied the trash folder. When I panicked the next morning, searching for the files, he stood in the doorway, sipping his espresso with a look of tragic resignation. "Megan," he said softly, putting a hand on my shoulder. "You never wrote those files, honey. You talked about them, sure, but you never actually started the work." This is the fog again. I looked at him. I remembered the exact timestamp of the save file. I remembered the hex code of the green I had used for the canopy rendering, but I didn't argue. I didn't pull up the cloud backup logs that proved he had accessed the machine at 3:14 a.m. "Maybe you are right," I whispered, staring at my hands. "I feel so scattered." "It is okay," he said, kissing my forehead. "You need rest. You need to step back from the firm. Let me handle the heavy lifting for a while." He was pruning me. Like a gardener cutting back a branch that is growing too strong, he was cutting away my autonomy, my confidence, and my career. He wanted a stump, not a tree. That afternoon, while he was at his office, which I now knew was likely a rental car parked near the gym, I accessed the joint credit line. He had been careful, but arrogance makes people sloppy. I found a pending charge for $42,000. The vendor was Luxury Escapes Maldives. The description read, "Corporate Retreat, Tokyo Delegation." I clicked on the itinerary details. 2 tickets, first class, an overwater bungalow, a private prenatal massage package. The departure date was Saturday, the 24th. My blood ran cold. Saturday, the 24th was not just a random date. It was the night of the Botanical Garden Charity Gala. The most important night of my professional year. It was the night I was unveiling the designs for the new conservatory. It was the night my firm would secure its funding for the next decade. Jason knew this. He had promised to be my co-chair. He had promised to introduce me. But he wasn't planning to be there. He was planning to be on a plane with Kayla, leaving me to stand on that stage alone, humiliated, presumably having a public breakdown that would justify his takeover. I picked up my phone and opened the burner Instagram account I had created. I searched for Kayla's handle, @FitWithKayla. There was a new story posted an hour ago. It was a video of her holding a passport and a new designer bikini. The caption read, "Baby moon loading. Daddy is upgrading our entire life. Number blessed number new chapter." I looked around my empty, silent condo. The walls of the glass box felt like they were closing in. He was using my credit line to celebrate the destruction of my life. He was buying freedom with the equity I had built working 80-hour weeks. The front door beeped. Jason was home. I quickly closed the laptop and sat on the couch, staring blankly at the TV, which wasn't even turned on. "Hey," he said. Walking in, he looked energized, happy, good news. "The Tokyo investors are loving the proposal. I might have to fly out this weekend to finalize it. It is a shame I'll miss the gala, but, well, in your condition, maybe it is better if you skip it too. We don't want you getting overwhelmed in front of the donors." He was giving me an out. He wanted me to stay home, sedated, while he disappeared. I turned to him. I summoned every ounce of discipline I had. I didn't scream. I didn't throw the Maldives receipt in his face. "You are probably right," I said, my voice hollow. "I don't think I can handle the crowd. You should go to Tokyo. Save the business." He smiled. It was a predator's smile, satisfied that the prey had stopped running. "That is my smart girl," he said. He thought he had won. He thought I was broken, but he forgot one thing about architects. We don't just build, we dig. And I was digging a hole so deep he wouldn't even see the bottom until he hit it. The first thing I noticed when I stopped taking the blue pills was the silence. The static in my head, that heavy electric fog Jason had called psychosis, vanished. In its place was the cold, sharp clarity of a drafting table. I was back. I met Frank at my office at midnight. The city was dark outside the warehouse windows, but inside, the fluorescent lights were humming. Frank wasn't wearing his security uniform. He was wearing a charcoal suit that was 10 years out of style but pressed with military precision. He didn't look like a mall guard tonight. He looked like what he used to be, a forensic auditor who had spent 30 years hunting white-collar predators. "I pulled the financials on his venture capital firm," Frank said, sliding a stack of papers across my desk. "It is a textbook Ponzi structure. Shell companies nesting inside shell companies. There are no Tokyo investors, Megan. There is just him moving money from your joint account into an offshore entity in the Caymans. I flipped through the pages. It was a massacre. He hadn't just spent the emergency fund. He had been siphoning liquidity from my firm for 2 years. But then I saw the document that made my blood freeze. It was a loan application, a business line of credit for $450,000 secured against the assets of my design studio. At the bottom of the page was my signature. I traced the ink with my finger. It was a perfect forgery. He had practiced. But an architect knows her own lines. The pressure points on the M were too heavy. The slant of the N was too aggressive. He mortgaged my life's work, I whispered. If he defaults on this, the bank takes the firm. I lose everything. It gets worse, Frank said. His voice was different now, quieter. He reached into his briefcase and pulled out a single sheet of paper. I lifted a latent print from the Scotch glass he left in the sink this morning. I ran it through a contact I still have at the bureau. Frank looked at me, and for the first time, I saw fear in his eyes. Megan, he said, you are not married to Jason. I frowned, my brain trying to process the syntax. What do you mean? The man you live with matches the biometrics of a man named Robert Vance, Frank said. He is a fugitive. He is wanted in 3 states for wire fraud, embezzlement, and grand larceny. The real Jason died in a car accident in 1995. Your husband stole a dead man's identity 5 years ago. The room spun. I gripped the edge of my desk. I wasn't married to a cheater. I wasn't married to a con artist. I was married to a ghost. I had shared my bed, my secrets, and my dreams with a man who did not exist. The danger in the room spiked instantly. This wasn't a civil dispute anymore. This was a federal crime scene. If Robert knew that I knew, he wouldn't just gaslight me. He would silence me. We have to go to the police, Frank said. No, I said. My voice was ice. If we go to the police now, he runs. He has a go bag. He has the Cayman accounts. He disappears, and I am left with the debt and the wreckage. So what do we do? Frank asked. I looked at the forged loan document. I looked at the mugshot of Robert Vance from 10 years ago. I thought about the Botanical Garden Gala tomorrow night. 300 witnesses, high security, no exits. We don't chase him, I said. We invite him. I picked up my phone and dialed Jason. He answered on the first ring, probably expecting a confused, medicated wife. Hey, honey, I said, forcing a tremor into my voice. I was thinking. You are right about the gala. I need you there. I can't do the speech alone. Please? For us? Of course, babe, he said, and I could hear the smugness in his smile. He thought he was walking into a coronation. He had no idea he was walking into an execution. Good, I said. Wear your best suit. I hung up. I looked at Frank. Get the projector ready, I said. We have a presentation to make. The botanical garden was illuminated by 1,000 fairy lights, turning the glass conservatory into a glowing cathedral of wealth and influence. 300 of the city's most powerful people were there, sipping champagne and discussing sustainability. I stood at the edge of the crowd, watching them. Everyone was wearing black ties and evening gowns. I was wearing a sharp, tailored white suit. In a room full of shadows, I wanted to be the blinding light. Jason stood near the podium, preening. He looked handsome in his tuxedo, the one he had bought with the last of the siphoned funds. He was shaking hands with the board members, laughing too loudly, acting like the CEO he thought he was about to become. He spotted me and rushed over, grabbing my arm with a grip that was possessive, not affectionate. You look intense, babe, he whispered, his eyes scanning the room. Where are the Tokyo investors? You said they were flying in. They are running late, I lied smoothly. But don't worry, the presentation is ready. I walked up the stairs to the stage. The microphone hummed as I tapped it. The room went silent. Jason stood just off to the side, beaming like a proud husband. He thought I was about to announce his appointment as interim director. He thought he had successfully pruned me back to a stump. Good evening, I said, my voice echoing off the glass ceiling. Tonight, we are here to celebrate growth, but as any landscape architect knows, not all growth is healthy. I looked directly at Jason. His smile faltered slightly. In nature, we have what are called invasive species, I continued. They are plants that look beautiful on the surface. They mimic the native flora, but underneath the soil, their roots are strangling the host. They steal resources. They poison the ground. They take over until there is nothing left of the original ecosystem. I signaled Frank in the tech booth. For the last 5 years, I have been living with an invasive species, I said. The giant screen behind me flickered to life. The room gasped. It wasn't a rendering of a new park. It was a high-definition image of the loan application. The forged signature was highlighted in red, magnified 10 feet tall. Jason's face went gray. He took a step toward me, his hands raising in a panic. Megan, stop. You are having an episode. Sit down, Robert, I commanded. My voice was amplified, booming like a judge's gavel. He froze at the name. That is a forgery, I told the crowd, pointing to the screen. A $450,000 loan taken out in my name by a man who claimed to be my husband. The screen changed. Now it showed the receipt for the Maldives trip. Luxury escapes. 2 guests. And this, I said, is where he planned to spend the money while I was being committed to a mental health facility. I saw Kayla in the back row, standing with her parents. The VIP donors I had insisted we invite. She was staring at the screen, her hand covering her mouth. Her parents looked like they wanted to strangle someone. But the most dangerous thing about an invasive species, I said, is that it doesn't belong here at all. The final image hit the screen. It was a mugshot. It was 10 years old, but the eyes were unmistakable. The name under the booking number read, Robert Vance. Wanted for wire fraud, embezzlement, identity theft. Jason died in 1995, I said, looking straight at the man who was now trembling violently. You are a ghost, Robert, and ghosts don't get equity. I took a breath, delivering the final audit of our marriage. I spent 5 years investing in a stock that was zero. I poured my love, my trust, and my money into a black hole. But tonight, I am not losing a husband. I am legally writing off a bad debt. The audit is closed. Robert bolted. He lunged for the side exit, shoving a waiter aside. But he didn't make it to the door. Kayla's father, a man who had built his fortune in steel, stepped into his path like a concrete wall. Robert bounced off him, stumbling back into the arms of 2 uniformed officers who Frank had positioned behind the ferns. The handcuffs clicked. It was the sharpest, cleanest sound I had ever heard. The aftermath was surprisingly quiet. Robert was denied bail. The judge considered him an extreme flight risk, given that he had successfully ceased to exist for a decade. The bank, faced with Frank's forensic report and the police findings, voided the fraudulent loan immediately. The debt evaporated like mist. I sold the penthouse 2 weeks later. I couldn't live in the glass box anymore. It was too transparent, too fragile. I bought a loft in the industrial district, exposed brick, steel beams, rough-hewn timber. It was a space that felt solid. It had weight. 1 month after the arrest, I walked out of the district attorney's office and saw Kayla standing on the sidewalk. She wasn't wearing her fitness gear. She was wearing jeans and a sweater, looking small and terrified. She had lost her daddy, her influencer status, and her dignity in a single night. She braced herself when she saw me, expecting me to scream at her, to blame her. I stopped in front of her. I reached into my purse and pulled out a card. It wasn't money. It was for a legal aid clinic that specialized in fraud victims. He stole your years, too, I said quietly. He used you as a getaway car. Don't let him steal your future. I pressed the card into her hand and walked away before she could answer. I didn't hate her. You don't hate the weeds for growing where the soil is disturbed. You just remove them. My new office was flooded with light from the high skylights. Frank was at the front desk, checking the security logs. He gave me a nod, the silent acknowledgement of a partner who knows the cost of peace. I went to the window ledge where I kept my bonsai tree. It had overgrown during the chaos of the last few months. The branches were wild, untamed. I picked up the pruning shears. The metal was cool in my hand. With steady, deliberate cuts, I began to trim away the dead leaves, shaping the tree back into something strong and beautiful. I am not the soil anymore. I am not the host. I am the gardener. And for the first time in my life, I decide what grows in my garden. If you believe that a woman's intuition is the best security system in the world, hit that share button and tell me in the comments what's one red flag you ignored but will never ignore again.